Hello and welcome to my channel. I am Akram and you are watching Knowledge 360. In recent videos, I have covered many topics of PostgreSQL database and you can check them from the playlist and the link given in the video description and the video info. And in today's video, we'll cover the triggers in PostgreSQL. So triggers are very interesting things in our database system that help us implement many business logic, but the triggers in PostgreSQL, they are somehow different than the usual database triggers, say it like Oracle, MySQL or SQL Server databases. So for that we'll create various objects to demonstrate the use of trigger and how we can create one trigger function and the use of trigger function, and to be precise, the use of the triggers in PostgreSQL. So before going to implement the triggers in PostgreSQL, let me tell you something about the triggers. Triggers are the special types of functions that we can say that are called or invoked, or we can say executed or performed automatically. So to execute, like say stored procedure or function, so for that we need to execute them or call them, but the triggers are auto executed based on the event that we mention in the creation of the definition of the trigger. Okay, so and a trigger is usually set before or after updating, deleting or inserting a DML statement on a table, and also we can perform trigger in DDL level as well, so we'll cover that as well in later videos. And that means whenever a record is to be inserted or updated or deleted based on the time of the execution that we mention, uh, the trigger will be executed, and the execution of the trigger we usually say trigger is fired. Okay, so in database language we usually say trigger is fired, means the trigger is executed. Okay, so let's see the steps. What are the steps of creating a trigger from beginning to end? So for to work with the triggers, we need several tables. In the first step, we should have a table on which the trigger will be executed. Okay, and ideally we should have another table where the logs will be entered for to demonstrate you that how trigger works. So for that we need another table, say it's logs tables we can say. Okay, then we should have a trigger function. We have seen already the stored procedure, stored function. So similarly there is one more object. If I can show you here in the schema, we can see here there is a place of procedures, sequence tables, and there is a place of trigger functions as well. So apart from the normal function or procedure, there is another kind of functions which is trigger function. So this is the major difference between other database triggers and PostgreSQL database trigger. So we need a trigger function here. Okay, so first we'll create one trigger function that the logic will be implemented there, and then we'll create one trigger, we can say. And this trigger, when we create this trigger, within this trigger the trigger function will be called. Okay, and after that, to make the trigger work, we need to do some DML operation, for example. Yeah, okay, so let's complete these things one by one into, let me open another window here. Okay, so for that let's create one table, say, sorry, create table, say I'll create one tables called students. Okay, so I'll have some attributes or columns for that, and they are, say it's say it roll number, which is of numeric type. I can assign one value, suppose say it's 10, and then I can have one name, and it's of, I can simply do varchar of 30, and I can have one course, for which course the student is registered. Suppose it's this one is also of 30. Okay, so first the table is created here. Sorry. Okay, the table is created. Now we'll create another table. Let just do copy paste, and we'll create one table and we'll give it name as student logs. Okay, because we want to store the data, that old data. Suppose I can rename columns, so roll number old, name old. So the all the old things, like before deleting or before updating in the existing things, so those things should be stored into these log tables. Okay, so I'm doing like this, so we'll understand better when actually I do the DML operations on these tables. Okay, so these two tables, student logs and student tables, are created. Let me just quickly verify them. Okay, I need to refresh here. Okay, so here we can see these two tables, students and student logs tables, are created here. So let's just clean this. And so after creating these two tables, now we'll create one trigger function, so that the trigger, whenever the trigger is executed, this function will be called. Okay, so this is the syntax, this is the basic syntax, how we create trigger. This is not nothing like exceptional, except the thing is that in the return statement of this function we need to mention that it returns trigger. So the basic difference between normal trigger and the trigger function is that in normal function we return a value. Okay, when we return values, say we can return number, we can return character, we can return date, or we can return even tables. Okay, so this is the normal function, that normal stored function. Okay, but the moment we return a trigger, okay, so that becomes trigger function. Okay, in some later examples I'll show you this difference clearly. So earlier also in previous videos we have created many triggers and stored procedure. If you have noticed that those things appear here within this function section or within this procedure section whenever we create them, but the moment we will be creating now the trigger function, and the return statement will be return trigger, so that function will appear here, not here. Okay, so just wait and let's see how it works. So let me create the create trigger, sorry, the create function, and the function name we can say give it like student logs trigger function, we can say simply. Okay, for student as we are creating, and this is the major thing that we need to take care of, returns, sorry, returns trigger. Okay, so this goes into the trigger function, and the language, let me just specify PGSQL, and body as I can mention here as a delimiter. Okay, and then I can mention quickly begin and an end. If you notice, this is the way I write so that I don't miss anything. Okay, so here we have written the begin and end, and within begin and end we'll be writing everything. So here just let me mention the declare. If we have anything to declare, we can mention here. Okay, so within the begin block, what we'll do, uh, we'll insert, obviously we have created two tables here. If you remember, two tables, from one table whatever changes happen, we'll create that the existing changes into this logs table. Okay, so suppose we are going to update some values into the existing tables, say student table. So just before that value gets updated, so the previous uh, state of the table, the record that should be captured here. Okay, so here I'll be inserting the record into students logs table, and we know what are the columns. They are, let me just check it. What are the columns for student role, student logs? Columns, one is role old, second name old, and then course old. Okay, and then now let's mention the values. And what will the values? If you are aware of the triggers of Oracle and other things, you must have seen this old dot student, because we are going to capture the old values that before updating whatever it was there. So student, so suppose we have given the role, column name is role, because these column names are from for these tables, student table, because the triggers will be fired on this table. Okay, students table. So then old dot name, then old dot course, and this insert statement is completed. Then now return new. Okay, new holds the new, all the new values, and old holds the all the old values before updating, and new holds the all the value that are after updating. Okay, so end statement we have already written here. So this above created trigger is a trigger function, and we are inserting the old values into the student log table here, and this function will be gets executed as per the event we set for the trigger. And let's create trigger, and before that let's create this trigger function and check if there is any error exists. No, it gets executed successfully. Okay, now let's create the this was the trigger function. And as I had mentioned earlier, let me just quickly show you where it appears. It should appear here. Yeah, see, this trigger function comes here instead of here, because this is a trigger function. Good. I think you got my point. And now we need to create the actual trigger that will call this trigger function that we just created now. So let me create a trigger. This is the actual creation of the trigger. And suppose say student, on the student table we are creating, suppose say student trigger it is. The name I have given like this. And we need to mention when it should get executed. I'm mentioning it before delete or before update I can mention, and on which table it should get fired. And we know that the table name is student table, sorry, students table here. So I have mentioned, and the thing is it should gets executed for each row. There is a execution of for each statement level trigger or each row level trigger. So we'll cover these advanced things in later videos. So keep connected with me and subscribe the channel so that you don't miss any video. So for now we are creating for each row type of trigger. And for each row what should happen, it should execute the procedures. And one more thing to see here is that we always say execute procedure unless it is sorry even if the uh, object type is a trigger function. But the thing is this is how we execute a trigger function. So this is the syntax. So you can say, so execute the procedure. What is the procedure name that we had given here over here? So this is the create trigger function name. We just mention it, and no need to pass any parameter because we don't have parameter here. And yeah, as this normal function, we can have parameter here as well. Okay, so there's no issue, and these things we'll see in later videos as well. So this is done, and now we are good to create this trigger. Let's just see if there exists any error or it's get compiled successfully. Okay, the trigger is compiled successfully, and now where it should appear, it should appear in the triggers. Okay, so the trigger is created, and to check the trigger where it exists exactly, because this is the trigger function as I have already shown you. And within this table section we can check here the triggers. If you are worried about where the trigger goes, so within this table there exists one trigger. Okay, so here it is, the student logs trigger function that we have created, and this is the trigger that we created, and this trigger implements this trigger function. Okay, so now our job is to work with some data, so we insert some data and we update them, we delete them, so that we can see how the data goes into this logs table. Okay, so let's see them one by one. So here we can see the definition says that it should get executed before deleting or before updating any record into the table. So while we are doing the insert statement on this table, so this trigger will not get fired, but the trigger will get fired whenever we delete any record or update any record in this table. Okay, and with the trigger, suppose say sometime we don't want to get we don't want to we don't want the trigger to get execute, so we can just do the disable instead of dropping the trigger. So we can just do the disable, so that it also involves in the optimization works also. We'll cover these things later. So as of now we are working on the demonstration of how trigger works. So let's insert some record into into the table students table, so so that we can say when student table have some data and we try to delete or update, how the logs table capture them. Okay, so let's start it. Okay, so first here I'll insert one record, insert into the table is students, and the values that are values in place of values. Suppose say roll number is 1 and student name is Akram, and the course is doing MCA. Okay, so let's insert this record. Okay, one record in is inserted. Let's just quickly check that. Select star from students, it should appear here. Okay, here it is. I have one record, but I'm not expecting any record into the logs table because I haven't performed any delete or update statement yet on the students table. So in the log table there should not be any record. Okay, so as we expected, there is no record. So now let's update one statement, one value. Suppose update students, and let's update one thing here. Update students and set the name of the student as say we can set here Akram Sohail, and it should be done on the basis of role. Suppose where role equals to 1, because I had given the role 1 here. And so as per the definition of our trigger, we excuse me. So let's quickly check what's the exact column name here. The column is students. Okay, I had missed this set. Okay, so the value is updated now, and what we are expecting in the students table, we should have the updated record every time whenever we check. But but the previous record where the name of the student was Akram, that is lost now. Okay, so to avoid that, I should have keep it somewhere. So we had created the students log table, and we had created trigger, and we had created trigger function. So that should work for us, and keep the old copy of the record. So in the logs table it should have one copy where the role will be 1 and the name will be Akram, and the course will be MCA as it is. So here it is in the logs table, the old data is here, and if I do again update anything, so this data will again updated here. So let's see, I again update this value with some other things. Suppose say Akram Sohail in place of say uh, I write like this, modified again. Okay, so when I again updated, so what will happen in the logs table, the data with the name Akram Sohail will be inserted, and the students table will have this record. Okay, so let's so the data is updated here. Let's check the data from students table. So students table data is containing these things because we just did this, but in the logs table there will be how many entries? There will be total 2 entries, because the first entry was when we changed the Akram to Akram Sohail, and the second entry we changed from Akram Sohail to Akram Sohail modified. Okay, so we here we got 2 entry, and these things will happen for all the record, all the things that whenever we perform. So and for now we have seen the whenever we update the values, the logs are getting captured. So let's check if while deleting a record, if our trigger is working or not. So let's delete students. um, so suppose say delete students where um, since there is no more than one record, could have left it, but it's better to mention one unique condition to match. So one record from students is deleted, the record was there, and in the students table I should not get any record. So okay, the record is now deleted, and in the students table I should not have any record. So here it is, the times I have tried to delete it. So all the logs will be captured here because I have performed the delete statement for the students table. So here we saw that how the trigger function works for PostgreSQL database, and for now we have seen this much, and in the next video will see some advanced things and some other options that are available with the PostgreSQL triggers. So subscribe the channel to get the notification, and if you understand the concept, please like the button, and please like the video, and also do comment whatever your thoughts, and please do appreciate my work, and let's see in the next video with a new concept. Till then, take care. Bye bye.